What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction, and in this one we have pros and cons of Dutch public transport from an American. Before we dive into this video, if you guys happen to enjoy it, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and if you'd like to support this channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit that join button to receive your exclusive benefits. Let's dive right in.
The Netherlands is one of the most expensive countries in the world for public transport.
But have you heard about the 48 euro ticket? It's similar to Germany's 49 euro ticket where you can travel all over Germany for the month.
And with this ticket, you can also travel all over the Netherlands for 48 euros per day. Public transport in the Netherlands is the second.
What you mean? So in Germany, 49 euros a month, and you could travel all over Germany for, and that's it. It's a 48 ticket in the Netherlands where you can use it for a day. Yeah, like, dude, that might be good. Like, if you got a family and that ticket worked for everybody in the family, and y'all doing a lot of traveling in a day. But for a person, that's a lot of money. Jeez.
Second most expensive in the world behind Switzerland. But if you factor in salaries and taxes, it might just be the most expensive in the world. I remember this being my biggest shock coming to this country. It was how expensive public transport is in the country. I mean, a one-way ticket from Amsterdam to Utrecht, 30 minutes, 9 euros. To go from Amsterdam to Rotterdam, 40 minutes, 18 euros. It's just as expensive as traveling in Switzerland, but you're definitely not earning a Swiss salary. For example,
40 minutes? 17 euros? In a car? I guess in the US, a car to travel 40 minutes in a car in gas might be like $1 to $2. 40 euros, 18 euros is crazy.
The median salary in the Netherlands is around 39,000 euros. This compares to around 83,000 euros in Switzerland. One earns double the amount in Switzerland, but yet the cost of public transport is about the same.
Huh?
And while the Netherlands is known for cycling,
that don't
it's
make
not
no
just
sense.
bikes. People get around via driving and public transport as well. And public transport is important within a country because studies show that commuting via public transport can actually boost happiness. And a famous Harvard study showed that access to public transport is the most important factor to escape poverty. But what do people living in the country think about Dutch public transport?
Expensive.
Hit or miss.
Amazing.
Efficient.
Expensive.
It's okay.
Well, there's only one way to find out. And what better way to find out than to spend 12 hours on public transport using this super expensive 48 euro day pass. From Amsterdam, I will go to Amersfoort, then to Zwolle, then to Friesland, before heading back down to Rotterdam. And then home to Amsterdam using trains, buses, trams, and the metro. And afterwards, we'll talk about the pros and the cons. Of course, we first go by bike. I love how everything is connected. The bike lanes all lead to public transport. And there are usually bike racks or bike parking at every train or metro station. And then you wave goodbye to your bike. It's a good idea to take a picture because you may forget where you parked. So usually most locals use this OV chip card to travel, but there's a one-day Holland ticket where you can travel all over the Netherlands on public transport for 48 euros per day. I buy it online and then I need to redeem it at the ticket office. But it's not open yet, so I kill time by walking around. And when it's time, I finally get my magic ticket. It's time to go. Amersfoort, Hoofddorp. Amersfoort, Hoofddorp. Amersfoort. I enter first class, which is indicated by the red seats. There's more legroom, space, and quiet, but it costs...
So for the 48 euro ticket, you get to go first class. You don't gotta go with the rest of the commoners. And I don't say commoners in a disrespectful way. I just forget what that class is called on the ticket. So get first class for the 48 euro. Okay, that's better. That's
70% more than second class. And Dutch train conductors, they do check train tickets, so I don't want to get fined. So I go back to second class, the blue seats. And I find a silent carriage.
You don't get the first class for the 48 euro ticket. You second class.
Which is supposed to be silent, but of course, there are people talking in a silent carriage. But I do try to sit in the silent carriages if I can because I usually try to nap, read, or listen to a podcast. We arrived
That's
to
cool.
Amersfoort on time, and for the most part, I do find trains do arrive on time.
So that was a very
92%
quick
of the time.
and smooth
Very
ride. Took
efficient.
less than an hour.
Let me quickly show you a glimpse of how beautiful Amersfoort is before hopping back on a train to Zwolle. And Amersfoort is known for being a very well-preserved medieval town. Well, it's actually a great
The
time to
polar
take a
bear
bus back
peeing,
to the
bro.
train station, and there's a bus stop nearby. I expected buses to be a challenge in a smaller town, but it's fine. It's time to head to Zwolle next. But the train is packed, so I need to sit on the stairs. Now, usually I can find a seat, but
Okay.
occasionally it's packed and you may need to stand. There are some cyclists who are doing a cycling trip, and the nice thing is you can bring your bike on the train for around €8. We arrive and I'm thinking of renting a bike. At most train stations in the Netherlands, you can rent a bike for around €4 per day using your OV chip
That's not
card.
bad at all.
This is what I love about the Netherlands. But I decide to walk 20 minutes into town instead. The nice thing
I
with
feel that
most Dutch
too.
towns is that they're small. You can easily get to the city center from the train station within 20 minutes by foot. And I've always wanted to see the famous bookshop inside a 15th century
Oh,
church.
wow.
And now it's time to
That
go
is so
to
freaking lit. It's so cool, like him traveling 12 hours on Dutch public transport, buses, train. And then the fact that you can get to the city center from the train station within 20 minutes by foot is like legit. This is, bro, the Netherlands is so well designed.
Friesland. And it's also time to admire the Dutch landscape.
Dang.
We're finally here, and here's a tip. Remember to check in and out at the right gate or pole, because if you don't,
Oh.
you will get a fine. This can be confusing if you're switching between trains and metros or multiple carriers like NS, Arriva, or Connexion. I'm finally in Friesland, it's lunchtime, and I'm hungry.
The
And did you
cheese
know that the
sandwich.
Netherlands has its own leaning tower?
We need more than just cheese in between bread. I need a ham and cheese sandwich at least.
Of Leeuwarden. Well, I can't wait to get back on the train for my final stop, Rotterdam. It's 3 hours to Rotterdam, so it's
Oh.
smart to use the toilet. All
Yeah,
trains have toilets
that
on
would be a good
board.
idea.
This one is modest, usable.
Oh,
It does the
very
job.
clean.
Some of the toilets on the Sprinter trains are newer and bigger. But hey, it's a lot better than paying €1 to use a toilet at the train station. I decide to take a
Agreed.
nap, but then I
Agreed.
realize my backpack is right beside me. To be honest, I'm still very cautious of my belongings. But then I know how safe the trains are.
Oh, dang.
And I've never experienced anything bad on the trains. And before I know it,
I was gonna
we're-
say, but if you want to take a nap, why not just like put the bag in your lap? Wow. And then nobody can take
here.
it from you.
And they have a metro. Rotterdam's metro is the first metro system in the Netherlands. Rotterdam's metro
Oh,
is
wow.
more old school than Amsterdam's.
1968.
It works. My stomach's growling, which means it's
Oh,
dinner time.
what you-
Japanese
oh.
ramen. Then I head over to the
I want
bridge
some
to watch
Japanese
the
ramen,
sunsets.
bro. I want
And
some
I
Japanese
really want
ramen.
to take a water taxi because it's a unique way to travel around by water. But to be honest, I want to take the water taxi to go see the famous building that Jackie Chan slid off of in the movie. But it's getting late. Next time, Jackie. It's time to go
Okay.
home. So
Next
finally,
time,
instead of the
Jackie.
metro, I decide to take the tram back to Central Station. And while on the tram, I decide to watch Jackie Chan fight scenes in Rotterdam. It's been a long day on bikes, trains, buses, metros, and the tram.
Yeah.
But I love how connected public transport is in the Netherlands. I finally get
For
back
sure.
to Amsterdam around 10 p.m., find my bike, check out, and head home. So after 5 years in the Netherlands, what do I think about public transport as an American? Let me start with the biggest con. It's expensive. How expensive? Well, if I didn't buy that 48-euro ticket, it would have cost me 100 euros on that trip. The Netherlands is arguably the most expensive country in the world for public transport. In
Yeah.
fact, Dutch public transport is 35% more expensive than other EU countries. And that's because Dutch public transport isn't heavily subsidized by the government as it is in other
okay.
countries. And while other countries like Germany have reduced reduce the price of public transport, the price of public transport in the Netherlands will increase in the following years. Well, okay, to put things in more perspective, how much does one actually spend on public transport in the Netherlands? Well, everyone's situation is different, but according to my own data, I spent around 1,500 euros in 2022 or 125 euros per month on public transport. Now, I spent half of that traveling to the office and the other half on personal travel. Here is the nice thing though, many companies...
125 a week isn't bad. 1,500 isn't bad. I price in the freaking... my car note, plus insurance, plus gas, plus maintenance. I'm coming to well over 1,500 a year and transporting myself around.
In the Netherlands will reimburse you for your travel to the office. So in reality, I only paid around 750 euros in public transport costs myself. I know people who drive or who depend on public transport because they live far away from the office. And so it's best to invest in a monthly pass or a subscription. And how much do they pay for this monthly pass? And how does that compare to other countries? It's a lot more expensive than other European countries, and it's similar to how much it would cost in Switzerland. And other countries like Austria and Germany, they have special discounted monthly passes.
That's a car note. That's how much I pay monthly for my car note. But $354 and you good to travel as much as you want. But God, that's...
And in Luxembourg, it's free. But the 354 euros only includes train travel. That doesn't include buses, trams, and the metro. So if you add things up in the Netherlands, it's quite expensive to travel via public transport. And if you take salaries into consideration, one could actually be spending between 10 and 15% of their income after taxes on public transport in the Netherlands. I do know of people who commute several hours for their job or school, and not every...
What's going on in Luxembourg? Average monthly gross salary, 6K. Public transport, 0. What's going on in Luxembourg?
Everyone is lucky enough to have their commute costs reimbursed by their employer. For example, if you work in non-corporate or international students. So spending over 10% of your income on public transport just doesn't make sense. But here's another perspective as an American. I personally spend less commuting here via public transport than I do driving in the US. In LA, I used to drive every day, and I would fill up once a week. So I would spend around $240 per month or $60 per week. You add in insurance and it comes out to around $420 per month compared to $135 per month in Amsterdam. Yeah. Additionally, my commute time in the Netherlands is around 1 hour per day compared to 2 hours in LA. Now, in the Netherlands, it may make more sense to drive instead of taking public transport if you live further away in a small town or if you travel with more than one person. But the point that I want to make is that you can get by with just public transport in the country, but it's really expensive. So you pay a lot of money to take the trains and public transport in the country. They must be worth it, right? How reliable are they? Well, let's define reliability as 92%. Out of all the trains that run...
I said on time, 92%. Oh, dang. 100% reliable, 95%.
Run and aren't cancelled, how on time or punctual are they? For example, if there were no cancellations and all trains ran on time, it would be 100% reliable. But I was surprised how often trains can be cancelled in the Netherlands. In 2018, 2.1% of all trains in the country were cancelled. This is higher than the EU average of 1.9%. And if you look at cancellations over the past few years, you can see that 2022, the cancellation rate of trains was around 5%. And in 2021, around 3% of all trains were cancelled. So far in 2023, around 4% of all trains were cancelled, which is quite average when you compare it to Great Britain's public transport as well. But here's the thing, if you're paying so much money for public transport, the cancellation rate shouldn't be that high. But in general, Dutch public transport is quite punctual. And from my experience, Dutch public transport has been on time most of the time. Let me show you some data to prove my point.
I feel like it definitely is expensive, but still cheaper than having a car over here in the US. So it still beats that, but compared to the other countries in the EU, the public transport, it is pretty expensive. And also compared with the salaries, the 12% of your salary to travel would be, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Let's start with trains. In 2022, Dutch trains were on time 92% of the time within 5 minutes. which is actually quite comparable when you compare it to other European train systems. And here's the thing about Swiss trains. They're one of the best in the world. 93% within 3 minutes includes cancellations, whereas the Dutch number doesn't include cancellations. So then how reliable are Dutch trains? Let's look back at the reliability equation. In 2022, given the cancellation rate was 5%, this gives us a running train percentage of 95%. The on-time rate was 92%, which gives us a reliability score of 88%. But this score of 88% in 2022 or 91% back in 2021, that's actually not too bad. And if we take a look at the research done by Crow on public transport over the years, we can see that for regional trains, they've been quite punctual and on time most of the time. Now, for buses, this is going to depend on the region, but they've been on time ranging between 70 and 97% of the time. For trams and metros, they're also quite punctual, especially the Rotterdam Metro. So if we objectively look at Dutch public transport as a whole, I do think we can say that it is quite reliable. And I know that might be hard for us to think because the human mind is wired to focus on the negatives, the cancellations, delays. And I also say this coming from the US, having grown up taking public transport there, that Dutch public transport is quite reliable and efficient. Which leads me to my second pro. I love how integrated the public transport system is. Everything...
I feel like to have over 90% reliability is absolute perfection. And so, again, shout out to the Dutch transport. I think that's truly incredible to achieve that over 90%. But I mean, with as expensive as you are, it better be over 90% reliability.
Is connected, and 50% of all public transport trips start with a bike. And this helps promote a more active lifestyle. Additionally, there are bike parking stations everywhere and at train stations. And with an OV chip card, you can even rent a bike for the day or multiple days. And now, you can even pay for your ticket using your phone or debit card. All of this helps reduce car use and promotes a more sustainable way to travel. In fact, Dutch trains were the first trains in the world to run 100% on wind energy. So if you connect all the dots, it's like this sophisticated spider web that makes up the Dutch public transport system. And that's something that I really value. And you know something else that I value? How safe, clean, and comfortable Dutch public transport is. For example, as a single female, I would recommend you to take public transport at night in the Netherlands, whereas in the US, I wouldn't say the same, especially in big cities. And that's because the Netherlands is one of the safest countries in the world with one of the lowest crime rates. And customers are also pretty satisfied with safety on the trains based on surveys. And that's important when you don't need to worry about things like robberies, assaults, and even murder. And I can...
Pigeon survived. New York pigeon pushed out the one in front of a train. I'm too dead. But yeah, to safety, like you get on this train, you ain't gotta sweat. You ain't gotta worry about anything happening to you. You're good. Very 16th safest country in the world.
Also find a seat most of the time on Dutch public transport. So when it comes to overall customer satisfaction, customers taking Dutch trains are quite satisfied and the rates are quite comparable when you compare it to Swiss trains. So I've talked a bit about pros and cons from my perspective on Dutch public transport. It's good, but it's expensive. So here's some tips. Get an OV chip card if you plan to be here for a while. With this card, you can purchase a monthly subscription where you can save money like 40% off. And on the NS website, there are always these travel deals and packages that include public transport. And before COVID, there used to be these cheap day passes from Albert Heijn and Kruidvat for 15 to 20 euros where you could travel unlimited on Dutch trains for the day. And with this OV chip card, you can rent bikes from the station for about 4 euros per day. Did you know if your train is cancelled or delayed, you can actually get a refund from NS? If your train is delayed between 30 and 59 minutes, you can actually get 50% back. Now, if your train is delayed over an hour, you could get the full amount back. And given how connected and integrated the public transport system is, use an app. I like using the 9292 and the NS apps. I also find that Google Maps does work and is quite good, especially in the big cities. And remember to check out, otherwise you will get fined. And please, if you sit in the silent carriages, be quiet. So yes, public transport in the Netherlands is expensive. I can understand paying that much in Switzerland because you earn a lot more and you can see some of the most beautiful landscapes traveling on Swiss trains. But as a whole, I am very grateful for Dutch public transport. And especially coming from an American who grew up taking public transport in the US, Dutch public transport is high quality, reliable for the most part, clean, safe, comfortable, and very well connected. Plus, I don't need to drive, but come on, and allow me to be Dutch and complain a little bit. 40 euros round trip for a 40-minute ride between Amsterdam and
It's
Rotterdam
crazy.
is just too much. Okay,
Yeah.
now it's your turn. What do you think about Dutch public transport? I'd love to learn. Please share and leave them in the comments below, and take care.
To me, it sounds pretty amazing. Other than being that expensive, Dutch transport definitely sounds like an amazing way to get around. We know that the number one way of transport in the Netherlands is by bike. But the Dutch train, I guess the train stations are very integrated with people on bikes. So you ride your bike to the train station, hop on the train, get to where you need to go, get another bike there, rent a bike, whatever you got to do, come back. While expensive, very efficient, very reliable. And yeah, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear from y'all. That's all we have. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the next one. I'll see y'all next time.